Hi guys, Ashley here. Today I'm bringing you Markus Kuhlo, who is the Senior Marketing Manager at Tencent Cloud Europe.
Well, hi, Ashley. Thank you for having me.
Markus, tell us, how is everything in Frankfurt before we go into anything China related? How are you?
We're fine. I mean, I think you know from the news that in Germany, we're also more or less on a lockdown, so everybody should stay home. And the good thing is we still can go outside. It's beautiful weather, so we can spend some time with the family going into the woods. But yeah, it's mainly home office. All the shops are closed and also the barbers are closed. So you can see, cut my hair myself now. Well, went wrong a little bit, but
this lockdown is going to create definitely a lot of people with unique talents. You know, we have to do everything by ourselves. But I hope that everything is gonna get back to some sort of normal soonest in Europe as well. Markus, you lived in mainland China for a while. In fact, it's been 6 years. I would like to start this chat with your perspective on how do you feel China is different in terms of the way people react to things, the way you do business. What in this cross-cultural communication that could be misunderstood between the two sides?
Well, I think China, when I came to China in 2008, the first time, when I met my wife, she's from Guangzhou. So we traveled to China. And it was so different. It was nothing like we ever imagined in Europe. I mean, culture is different. Food is so different. You know, it has nothing to do with the European Chinese food that we get here. And in 2013, we decided to move to China to spend some time here, to gain some experience and well, to have an adventure. And I think it was amazing. I think everything in China is so fast and people are super friendly. We made so many new friends, and we lived a very Chinese way. So we lived with my parents-in-law for 6 years. Not always easy, but it was quite fun.
For European, and for an independent European, it could be quite tough.
It is, especially if we don't speak the same language. I mean, my Chinese is not very good, to be honest, and they're only speaking Cantonese, so yeah, it was a tough time, but so good. And I think Chinese people in general, they appreciate new technologies. If something new comes out here in Europe, you know, the first thing is it a threat to me? But in China, it's like, oh, that's an opportunity for me. So this is a very, very big difference. You know, I mean, something changes and Chinese adapt to it very, very quickly. I'm not saying Europeans don't adapt, but there's always like this little, that's
resistance.
Change good. So I think China appreciates this change, this technology much more and really lives it. And you can see how many good products are coming out of China. I mean, 20 years ago, everybody said everything out of China is a copycat. But now companies are looking towards China to learn about what are you doing in China? How can you, well, change things so fast? How can you adopt mobile payments so fast? How can you use artificial intelligence in such a huge dimension that you do it right now? And how can people get used to that so quickly? I think that's a very big difference.
I think you are in a phenomenal way an expert on how can Western companies use Chinese technology in order to succeed in China. So what is your take? What unique technology is out there and how can Western brands really leverage it and understand it?
Well, I wouldn't call me an expert. I mean, there are people with much more experience on these kind of things. But I think one challenge for most of the companies is that they think the solution that we have here in Europe and that works for them here will work overseas as well, or works in China as well. And that's, well, not true. I mean, just look at eBay. They failed quite big in China. Amazon failed big in China. So it's like you have to adapt and you have to see how people are using technologies, how they are using, how are they using your content. I mean, if you think about it, it's fair to say China is a mobile only country. Everybody has its smartphone, right? And in Europe, it's different. I mean, everybody has a smartphone as well, but people are more used to use their computers or their consoles, for instance, if we talk about gaming. In China, it's I mean, you know it, you live in Hong Kong and you go to the subway, everybody's playing games or or video chatting in the subway. And I've been to London recently. I mean, you don't even have signal down there. So it's it's like really it's people have to learn more, have to see with their own eyes. They should go to China and see how people are, how are they going to do shopping. I mean, e-commerce in China is so big, and I think after this pandemic, it's going to become even bigger. And I think it's also important to see how offline shops integrate online solutions into their, well, sales funnel, how they stay in touch with their customers. And if you think about it here in Europe, I mean, you know, we have those cards for every supermarket. We have those cards, like like Suning in China, right? We have Media Market and Saturn here, and we have a chip card for each of them that we have to carry around with us.
And then the whole wallet is that thick with cards.
Yes.
You need to see, my husband is also German, and my husband is carrying, it's not just a purse, it's not just a little wallet. It's like a huge A4 size kind of flipper with all the cards. He doesn't carry it all the time, but when he knows, for instance, that he's going shopping, etc., he takes it with, because there are tons of cards, discount cards, some privilege cards, whatever else. It's quite fascinating.
Absolutely.
That's beautiful. When you look at Chinese tech giants, and Tencent has been one of them, what are some of the companies or some of the technology or some of the way of thinking that you believe sets them apart? Why are they able to be who they are and innovate the way they do?
That's a really good question. I mean, if you look at it, Google and Amazon, they're also very big, very successful. And but if you look at the Chinese companies, I think they're very flexible in their ways. They develop a new product, they see if it works, and then they gather feedback from the users. I mean, they have that advantage that China is a huge market. They have a potential volume of 1.4 billion users. So they can gather a lot of user feedback quite quickly, which might take more time here in Europe or in the Western world, generally speaking. And they're very quick to adopt. They see that there is a problem with their software and they will fix it immediately. Now, Western companies do that as well. But what is very different is that if a Chinese company sees, oh, there is an opportunity that's not my vertical, but I can use my solution to enter that vertical as well, then they will just do it. Even though if it is really outside of their box or outside of their expertise. I mean, look at Meituan. You know how they started and what they do now. Look at Ofo, how they started.
Look at Pinduoduo.
Exactly. I mean, it's like they started very small in a niche, but then very quickly saw, oh, there's an opportunity as well. So I mean, we're always saying agile working is the right way to work. And I think in China, you can see real agility here. I mean, they see an opportunity, they grab it, they try it, they fail, well, they recover and they just do it again.
And how does it feel to work for a Chinese company? A lot of, within China, tech giants also have kind of good reputation, but also a nasty reputation because you work 996 and there's a lot of pressure and it's definitely not your happy Google, It's nice offices. I mean, I've been to your headquarters and it's so gorgeous with all the, cool perks. But how does it really feel to be working for a Chinese tech giant?
Difficult to say because I don't have the comparison to a Western tech giant. So I never worked for Google, Microsoft or something. I think there are some colleagues, some European colleagues now that did exactly that. But for me, I think I worked for other Chinese companies before. And I think especially Tencent is very different from everything I've worked before. I mean, it's very flexible. Home office is not a problem. I don't think that we have 996. We don't do that. Of course, if there's work to do, we have to do it. But the company is very flexible. So we don't have to be in the office at 9 o'clock. We come when we come and we finish when we finish. And there are a lot of perks working for such a big company. I mean, we have a very good canteen. You've been to the headquarters, to the new one, right?
Yeah,
with the basketball court.
Yeah, it's amazing. Running, you've got this jogging trail.
Yeah, I think that's one perk. But the other perk is also that the company takes a lot of care about us as employees. I mean, when this pandemic started, you know, everybody in Europe was like, nah, it's in China, it's far away, it's never gonna come here. So, which was, well, wrong at that time. A lot of people now know better. And our HR from the first day sent us messages: stop traveling, try to work from home, try to do meetings online. They sent masks to us, they sent hand sanitizer to us. So they were really taking care about us. And now we're having like those events, the best cooking over Easter. We did a competition in who cooks the best meal and who plays with its kids. So I think the company really takes care of us as employees, and that's really cool. And they also want to teach us a lot of things. So we have a lot of training. We exchange ideas and thoughts a lot with our colleagues in China, in America. So I think it's really cool working here.
It's a really cool community. So you see another myth totally dismissed about the 996 and the horrible hardcore working environment. And actually, I totally agree with you, because so many Chinese companies, their superpower is the fact that they're very flexible. I remember speaking with a high and very top Xiaomi executive, and they told me something that I will totally never forget. They said Xiaomi obviously growing very, very fast. Every year they I do not know, triple or quadruple their profits. But what they told us is, we don't have a strategy. And I said, what do you mean you don't have strategies? They said, well, the only goal, the only outcome we have per year is to double our revenue. How you arrive there does not matter. So each department head just knows that they need to double the revenue, and then the route is open. So they also said that it doesn't make sense to create a 10-year plan or 5-year plan or 3-year plan, because we don't know where we're going to be in 6 months from now. So for me, it was totally like, oh my God, this is indeed, the flexibility is the core of business. When we talk about cloud, we know that Tencent has tons of products, and one of the biggest one, at least the ones that people I think outside of China know most about, is, you know, WeChat and these platforms. And then of course there is gaming, which is a huge profit generator, and this is actually what set Tencent on track of this success. And there's also cloud services. Why Tencent right now is spending so much time promoting and developing and actually, you know, spreading the message about their cloud services?
Well, I think you mentioned a lot of things here. You mentioned WeChat, you mentioned the gaming, and I mean, there is QQ Video, QQ Music, they all run on Tencent Cloud. And those are very big online services. And if you want to run those services with a great user experience, which is the most important thing, that connectivity doesn't drop. You still can play with your friends online, even though you have a very bad connectivity. So we spent a lot of time in developing solutions that really work very well. And we're basically our best customer to that regard. So we're using our solutions for WeChat. I mean, in China, you know, nothing goes without WeChat anymore. I mean, payment, doctor's appointment, anything. So, but this has to run on an infrastructure that is so stable that there are no outages. Because if there would be any outage or any problem that users can't use the service, then nobody would use it anymore, and it would not be very helpful. And well, we used a lot of time to develop this infrastructure with our own data centers, solutions, and these kind of things. And we think now they're mature enough to help other businesses to leverage our solutions, because sometimes there are very small companies that have great ideas, but they don't have the budget or the technology to make them happen. So they can use our solutions, our artificial intelligence solutions or big data solutions to make their product happening at the end of the day.
Can you give an example? Because right now a lot of people are like, oh my God, this is so exciting, but what kind of businesses can actually get on cloud? Like, is it something really simple? Like for instance, we talk about, I mean, Amazon has their cloud, Google has their cloud. And, you know, as a company, essentially what they want you to do is to assign your web server there and get your emails stored there. But what I think Tencent is doing, if I'm not mistaken, is a lot deeper than just storing your data on an outside drive and cloud. So can you walk us through a typical scenario? How would somebody actually use this service?
Okay, well, you're absolutely right. I mean, cloud is much more than just storing data. You know, it's more than, I think there was on Dropbox, for instance. I mean, of course, that's cloud storage, but that's just a small part. Also, email is based on cloud services, and also Microsoft Office 365 is a cloud service. It's a software as a it's a software as a service model. And Adobe products, they're all software as a service. And but that's not really where it gets interesting for us. I mean, for us, we go a little bit deeper into that. Let's say, I'll give you an example of gaming, for instance, right? So when you play a game, you can either play it with your friends locally. So I don't know if you were into gaming when you were younger, you had those LAN parties where you met in a small room and then put the computers together. It took 2 days to set up. You played one day, and then it was Monday again, and you had to go back to school. And nowadays, you just stay home and you still can play with your friends. So you need infrastructure in the background. You need lobby servers where people meet, where they basically match by skills, by the game they want to play. Of course, they're already in the same lobby for the same game. They need to be matched with their skills. Then there's something called ping, which is basically the time your computer needs to, the time the server responds to your computer. It's basically about the proximity to the nearest server. And it's very important that you have a low ping with the people you play with, because then, especially if you play shooters are very popular right now, like Fortnite, PUBG Mobile. So you don't want to have any latency, that if you move and suddenly you're dead, that would be a nightmare. So you need servers to figure all these things out in the background, and there's no human involved or something. That would be a nightmare. I mean, there are millions of people playing. And then you need the servers where the game actually itself runs on, where they put like 100 people on one computer and they play the same game in the same map. And this is it's just a small part. I'm not a technician so much, so it's very difficult to explain for me, myself. But if you're interested, I mean, I can connect you to one of our tech guys, and they will.
But
they
just
will let you know
can you imagine, guys, what I want? I want our audience to just understand that it's essentially like running. Well, while Markus, you gave an example of a game, it's more like running your whole operations, from the fulfillment centers to the customer segmentation to the internal hangouts to blah blah blah, whatever you have, whatever data point, connectivity, etc., all in one place. My question here would be, we've seen, and you mentioned that a lot of Chinese products and tech companies are actually going global, right? They are not only copying and kind of capturing China market and adapting from China market, but they're actually also going global. Do you personally feel that Chinese tech products have a potential to be successful in the West, or are they primarily China focused, and then whoever works in China can basically tap into that technology, but outside of China they have less potential? What's your take on that?
Well, interesting question. I think we have to be very careful not to make the same mistakes as Western companies entering the Chinese market. I think there has to be a globalization strategy. You have to learn about the markets where you want to go to. You have to see their requirements. You have to see where they are at the moment, because if they are so much behind, you cannot just come with the latest technology. I think there needs to be a step in between as well, because otherwise it would scare people just to use it. I think what we're doing right now is we learn what's happening in Europe for our team, because we're based in Europe and we're responsible for the European market. So we're looking at where to start to find the right angle on how to deal with customers and what to offer them to be more successful. And of course, I mean, Tencent is a big Chinese company. So we're looking to help them. In the first place, we're looking to help them to be successful in China, to use the technology in China because it's made for China. And then they can get used to it. Once they're used to it, those multinational companies, they will see the benefit of it, and then they can roll it out in Western countries as well. So of course, we're trying to make local business as well. But of course, it makes a lot of sense to support multinational companies, just like the big brands like Adidas, BMW, or Puma, or whoever it is in the Chinese market, to be even more successful than they are already. Because I think following you, I know that Chinese are getting also more competitive with their own brands. You know, it's not like you are a famous foreign brand, you come to China and hey, here I am, and people will buy you just because of the name. I think those times are over now. So they have to be competitive. They have to offer new solutions. They have to offer a new customer experience, because the Chinese products are now on par with their Western counterparts, and the consumers are realizing that. So you always have to be innovative, and you can use artificial intelligence to learn more, or to do better, to optimize your shop layout, for instance. You can use artificial intelligence by just tracking where are people staying most of the time in the shop, and are they buying something there, or are they just looking at it? And then AI can help you to optimize that, to find better products for your shop. And this is some very interesting retail technology that we have. And why not use it in China first, and then see how it works, and then roll it out in Europe? But it would also be a very big mistake to assume that Western countries are so far behind. I mean, they're just slower, but they know what's available, and some of the solutions are here as well, but localized. And we're now also an international company, so we have to localize as well. We cannot just come here and say, look,
we know how it works.
Exactly, because every market is different. I mean, China is different from America. America is very different from Europe as well. So we have to be very flexible here as well.
A quick question to follow up on that. So does Tencent actually only offer the soft solution or some hardware? As you mentioned, you can track, for instance, foot traffic, or the way people interact with certain product categories in offline settings. So if they decide to collaborate with Tencent ecosystem, does it only come in a software format, or is there also hardware that comes with?
Well, Tencent is an internet company, so we're mostly focusing on solutions that are software related. And this means that we have a lot of partners that help us with the hardware.
Beautiful. Now, as kind of softer question, what is your favorite part of Tencent ecosystem? There are so many things that the company is doing. What do you think is either really, really cool that you totally love, or something that very few people kind of know and you want them to know about this particular business aspect of Tencent as a tech giant?
Ooh, there are many things. Of course, I love WeChat just for being so convenient. I mean, when we lived in China, we talked about the big wallet. In China, you go out with your mobile phone and you can do everything. You
right now, you go out with your face, right? That you just check out.
Exactly. So I think WeChat is great because it's not an app, it's a platform. It enables not only you to have a better life, but it also helps other people to be successful. You can open your mini app and have a store inside WeChat, and you can push through social commerce through your friends and different channels on WeChat. And I think therefore I really like WeChat a lot.
A quick remark on WeChat. A quick remark on WeChat. Just today, actually, a colleague of mine came to me and she showed me the WeChat videos. Right now, each person can basically record those videos, and it was launched a couple of weeks ago as a test. And just as you mentioned, first, Tencent goes out with a new feature and they test it out. Once it's proven successful, they basically roll it out. So my colleague mentioned to me, I mean, I knew about this feature, but she showed to me that over this weekend, she was actually shooting some videos in Hong Kong, and she got hundreds, if not thousands of views. Because this is a new feature, it's now being promoted within that ecosystem. And again, guys, if you're watching, if you're on WeChat as a brand or as an individual, and you have some aspiration to be even more successful, or to sell something, or to grow your followership, definitely use those videos, because this feature is now being definitely pushed. Anything apart from WeChat?
Well, I love the gaming ecosystem, of course. I love playing games, and I think it's really cool that we put a lot of effort into taking AAA titles and make them mobile friendly. Unfortunately, I cannot talk about this specific case I would love to mention, but it's one of my favorite games on console for PS4 and all these. And now there is a mobile version, which makes life so much easier, because I travel a lot, and I have kids, so I can't play on the console all the time. So sometimes I can, well, when they sleep, I can sneak out and play a little bit on the mobile phone. So I think understanding that habit or user behavior changes is one of the great advantages here at Tencent, and to really deliver what the user wants. Not everybody wants a console. Some people just want to play casually, don't want to spend so much money. And I mean, mobile phones are quite powerful nowadays.
The last question is, how would you encourage people as of international brands, international companies out there, people that are familiar with the platform or are not very familiar with Tencent as a tech platform and route to China, how would you encourage them to use this ecosystem right now post COVID-19? What shall, in other words, brands be looking at and doing right now within Tencent ecosystem?
Well, first of all, deliver messages. I mean, we ourselves, we used our platforms to educate people, to share information with WHO and the United Nations with people. So I think it's a very important tool to stay in touch. And the Tencent ecosystem is so broad. I mean, it's not just one touch point. You have WeChat if you want to communicate a direct message to somebody or to a larger group. But think about Tencent Music, QQ Music, Tencent Video, all the games. This all comes together. So I think if you use the Tencent ecosystem, you should really not just focus on WeChat. There's so much more around that. Just look at all the other platforms. I mean, if you do business in Europe, you'd not just focus on Google advertisement. You do Facebook as well. You do Twitter as well. You do Amazon advertisement as well if you want to sell things. And in China, it's so much easier because there's the Tencent ecosystem, which means you can really touch your customer on one ecosystem on several touch points. And you can learn much better because if you think about the Western world, you have so many data lakes. You have information about your customers from Google, from Amazon, from Facebook, from Twitter. And but you have to put it together all manually. In China, you have Tencent. You have the Tencent ecosystem. So it's all on one platform. So you can much better understand your user and therefore deliver a much better user experience and products to them.
I absolutely love it. But I also have a lot of people complaining when they go to China. They say, you know what, in China, there are a few ecosystems. There's Ali plus JD ecosystem, there's Tencent ecosystem, and the two ecosystems do not talk to each other. So even if you are ready to, you know, really go deep dive on your consumer in one ecosystem, then the two systems cannot be connected. So it definitely has slightly different problems in that market. And maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel that the connection between, let's say, Alice plus Tencent will not be the reality in the next couple of years. So we will need to go to China and we need to pick the ecosystem where we want to build a more detailed portrait of our consumer. And then we'll have to go to another China ecosystem and also start building something. And hopefully a couple of years down the road, indeed, this depth will be somehow combined into one persona, but we're still a couple of years away from that. Yeah.
Well, I can't answer that. I mean, that's a question I can't answer about the future. But I think it is important to understand that you should not pick one over the other.
Yes.
You should leverage both.
Yes.
I think this is the most important takeaway you should have because you're not just if you look at a reseller on Amazon, they're not only using Amazon, they're using other e-commerce platforms as well to sell their products. And I think this is very important to understand. And there are differences in each ecosystem. Yeah. I mean, I think social commerce and Tencent just works really well together because it's more social. You know, you have your friends on WeChat and you share information with them. And you also have JD in our ecosystem. So you have a platform to sell products on. And with mini programs, you can make so many fun ways to interact with
online to offline. Link is very convenient as well.
Scan a QR code in a Watson store and get the online information, order it, and well, just pick it up or get it delivered. I think people should be a little bit more flexible when they go to China. I mean, just like the Chinese, you need to adapt to the market. I think we mentioned that early on. So you need to be more flexible by picking your ecosystem. And well, don't just think because you're using one ecosystem, you're done and you will be very successful. You have to leverage all of them.
Absolutely. And it's actually much easier in many ways because there are only two major ecosystems and a little bit of, let's say, ByteDance tech and, Baidu here and there. But in terms of the ecosystems that integrate new retail and that integrate, let's call it smart retail, what Tencent calls it, right? These are really two, either Alibaba or it is Tencent plus JD. So we have kind of very clear options presented to us and both need to be used. Markus, thank you so much. It was definitely very insightful, very interesting. It was a pleasure to have you. And guys, do connect with Markus if you're looking for solutions, if you're being an international company, you're looking for solutions in China when you're ready to leverage Tencent cloud services or learn more about the services that they're providing for large and medium-sized corporations within European borders. Definitely connect and stay tuned for more China experts to come to talk about their new normal in China post-COVID-19.